Hi, welcome back students. Still with me Irfan Rifai for your English Proficiency Program with Binus University. For today's topic, we'll be talking about one very important skill in attaining knowledge, which is reading comprehension. Some of you might like to read. Well, let me put it this way. Some of you may like to read. And some of us may like to read even better. Okay, so that is a good thing, When you like reading, the chance is you will find it easier to understand complex texts that you are reading. Especially now that you are on grade 12, later on when you are at college, you will find a lot more challenging texts. For that very reason, today we are going to focus in introducing you with one of the strategies to improve your reading comprehension. We call it close reading. The learning outcomes of the day is for you to be able to use proper English expression in speaking, writing, reading, and listening. But let's just focus on reading for the time being. Before we go on further with the techniques on how to do close reading, let's focus on the definition first. What is close reading anyway? So, to put it frankly, close reading is the activity that you do when you read, but you observe facts and details about the text. So instead of focusing on other components of text, you are focusing on the facts and the details that the text is presenting you. When you want to do a close reading, you are driven by your objectives. So you have to start with that objectives in mind of what you want to do with the text, what kind of information you are trying to get from the text. Because if you are not focused on the objectives, then your close reading may end up as open reading or not even close reading at all. And lastly, the second step for you when you do close reading is to interpret your observation. So once you are able to gather enough data from your reading, then you can perform what we call as interpretation. The act of interpretation is very important because this will give you a conclusion of your close reading activity. Remember, when you close reading, you read a text closely, and then you don't just read it once. You can read it multiple times. You read it once, you read it twice, and perhaps you read it 3 times in the objective of trying to get the messages from the text or the data or the details that you need from the text. Okay, I hope that will give you a better understanding of what close reading is. The question is perhaps you want to know why you need to do it. Well, when you do close reading, you will be able to gather information and the data and better understanding of the text. There are ways to do it, and these are some of them. The first one, and I found it a very fun activity, is to annotate what you read, to annotate the text. How do I annotate them? I will give you the details later on. But the second one is to look for patterns in the text. So once you are able to perhaps circle it, perhaps underline it, perhaps highlight or put some color on the text or some parts of the text, then you look for patterns in the text. You look for repetitions, contradictions, and even perhaps similarities. And then the third one is to help you do with your interpretation, which is to ask questions about the patterns you have noticed. The question of how and why. Why such a pattern? How did such patterns emerge from the text? What did the writers want to convey from the text? All right, let us go more specific with each of every step. The first one is annotating. Yeah, I like doing it as a student. I hope that you will like it too, because the first thing that you do is you summarize key points in your own words. Yeah, so you read the text, you summarize it with your own words. Yeah, some of the sentences that are challenging in the text, and I find, I think if I put it in the different words, I will understand it better. Yes, just do it and put it somewhere on the text. And then number two, circle key concepts and phrases. Use colors. Use different kind of colors when you circle the key concepts from the text. Circle powerful words. Underline some words that you don't understand. That will help. And then, if you have to, and then I love to do it as well, is to put brief comments and just remarks under any interesting points that the writer made in his text or in her text. Look at the example there. Yeah, as you can see, like if a lot of advice are given to those who want to annotate is by just using colorful pens, because once you are using colorful pens, it will be interesting for you to get back to what you have just read. All right, so that is 1, 2, 3. What about number 4? Use abbreviations and symbols. What you're looking at right now is perhaps you think of it as a messy kind of annotations, but because annotating is a very personal experience, so you can actually do whatever you please when you annotate. But again, use abbreviation and symbols that mean something to you, right? Don't use symbol and abbreviation used by other people, right? Because they may not mean anything to you. All right, and then number 5, highlight and underline. Perhaps you have noticed this, you have done this before, but my suggestion is when you underline something, when you underline a word, when you highlight a word, make sure you do it consistently. When you highlight something, for example, when I highlight a certain word, it means that I do not know the meaning of the word, for example. All right, and number 6, and use comment, and highlight to try to connect, to relate the details that you are making or the annotations that you are making on the text, perhaps in the beginning of the text, the middle of the text, or by the end of the text. And now, if you think that you don't like using pen and pencil or paper, you don't read the paper books anymore, but instead you are using digital books. In PDF, you can use stylus and then just make annotations everywhere easily. Some of my friends even like it better. All right, see how would you like it, paper or digital? It's up to you. Okay, now, so those are patterns or ways for you to do annotations. The second thing that you do in the process of close reading is look for patterns in the text. You go back to the annotations you made. You go back to the circles you were making. You go back to the underlined words. You go back to the highlighted words and the comments you made while you were annotating. And then identify the patterns. Are there any patterns? Why is the author using a certain word after a comma, for example? Why is he using an adjective like this? Why is he using adverbs to emphasize a certain kind of information? So if you see that pattern, and then you try to link it by the end, then my friends, you are performing a good practice of close reading. But lastly, after you kind of like having inconclusive conclusion about the patterns, then lastly, this is what you need to do: ask the questions. How does this pattern fit into the pattern of a book as a whole? For example, if it is a book, if it is a text, how does this pattern fit into the pattern of the text as a whole? Say, for example, you are reading a text about the causes of or the patterns of earthquakes in Cianjur, for example. If you read that and then you found out that it happens every 20 years, then perhaps there will be some information that you get that repeats the information that come up with the conclusion. All right, so those are the 3 steps that you need to memorize and you need to implement when you close read. Let's give it a try. Let's say I have this text, and then I made some circles, I made some underlines, of some of the words that I thought was important, some of the words that I thought was difficult or were difficult for me to understand. I didn't know the meaning of unrealistic, for example. I didn't know the meaning of sorority, for example. I didn't know the meaning of scrolling, for example. But I found that procrastination is a very important word. Division, editing, and proofreading are 3 very important words. And I also circle isn't your best work phrase as very important part of the sentence. So what did I want to answer from this text anyway. So these are the questions. I actually wanted to answer these two questions before I actually annotated or practiced the close reading. I wanted to know what were the impacts of procrastination to college students. Number two, I wanted to know what are the important process of writing that I miss by procrastinating. So if you look at my close reading practice, do you think you can come up with a conclusion and try to answer these questions? If you can, that means you are close to being able to perform a good close reading activity. All right, so I would like to leave you with one final slide. So when you do a close reading, please remember that your objectives are supposed to be the ones driving your close reading activity. Yeah, and then number two, read, take notes, and annotate when you read. Okay, number three, look for patterns in the text. Number four, reread the text several times. And lastly, summarize your notes before writing up your analysis. Because your analysis is going to be your final remarks or your final comments about the reasons why you did close reading. That will be all for our topic today. I hope you have found it useful. Thank you very much and have a good day.